Audrey Nube and her sister Ruth settled in Simangani, Zimbabwe in 1990. At the time, the nearest Adventist church was 45 kilometers away. Traveling that distance for worship was difficult, so they began worshiping in their homes. Eventually, their church community outgrew the space that a home could provide, and they were forced to worship under the shade of a tree. Then they built a simple structure shaded by plastic and sheet metal. But meeting for worship was still a hardship.
Yeah, it rains. The rain was destroying us. When it is raining, we've got to go in their homes. We used to pray in the verandas at home.
The shed was not made by professional people. So at times, even when the wind came, it could fall. So it was very dangerous even for us, but we had no option. We just went in. I still remember some time it happened that it fell when the wind came, but it was just after some few minutes when we had dismissed. So we were very lucky. The whole congregation was going to be crushed while worshiping there. So it wasn't safe.
Other churches in this region are well established. Their sanctuaries are just that, sanctuaries. It's also common for them to have schools and provide for the needs of the community. When someone has a choice of a temple like this or the shelter where the Simangani group worshipped, it's easy to understand the challenge Adventists faced in inviting others to join their faith community.
The message that we preach as Adventists is a message that we have to live and the message that the people should see. So when we are worshiping under a shed made out of sticks and the old broken zincs, the people want to say these people are worshiping maybe a not living God.
The hardships that Audrey, Ruth, and Kulekani face are echoed by congregations all over the world. Each Sabbath, groups meet under trees, in homes, or under tarps. Not only do these situations make gathering for worship uncomfortable, it makes the God they worship seem less legitimate.
You cannot be able to recruit new members if you are under a tent. Come the rain season, under that tent the water will start to come in and then you have to stand and cramp yourself onto the preacher, and some people get frustrated and go away.
We preach, but people now maybe they go back because when they come to church they find it's a poor infrastructure and they say, I'm coming from a better church with a good building, but look at this Adventist church. Yes, they have the truth, but where the building?
For 5 decades, Maranatha has worked tirelessly to move congregations out from under trees and into appropriate places of worship. In the beginning, the work moved slowly, with only a few churches being built each year. Efforts like Santo Domingo 92 in the Dominican Republic stretched our faith and capacity to meet the need for places of worship. But despite building hundreds of churches, the overall need was still daunting.
We had over 100,000 requests here, and there's no way that we were making enough progress toward accomplishing a large percentage of those. How do we get more done with less money, less time, and move this thing along? Because how will we ever meet the great need, for the churches, the schools, the buildings around the world?
The solution came from manufacturer and Maranatha supporter Garwin McNeilis.
Well, Don, have we ever tried building a church from the roof down, like a carport type? And then the locals who can burn the bricks, they can make the sides, they can do that, and that doesn't take a hard currency.
It was a simple idea. a simple steel structure that could be constructed in a day and members could finish. The one-day church program immediately increased Maranatha's capacity to respond to the immense need for church structures in ways previously unimaginable. Hundreds of structures began to be constructed around the world. 150 churches in Ecuador, 700 churches in Mozambique, 900 churches in Malawi, and nearly 1,000 in Brazil. Not only was Maranatha able to tackle more of the need because of the lower cost, the light steel structure meant buildings could be constructed in areas that had previously been out of reach. Church kits traveled on boats to be constructed deep in the Amazon jungle. They were hand-carried into the mountains of Costa Rica. And trucks traversed dusty roads to bring new churches to remote groups. But the transformation doesn't end when the Maranatha crews leave. The gift of a new church structure gave congregations the boost they needed to get out from under the sun and create a worship space that reflects their culture.
Getting that local congregation involved is one of the things that this program has done that I think is really positive. It also has allowed us to go into countries and do much larger numbers of projects. And we've looked back, we haven't gone to every place that built these projects, but what we hear anecdotally and sometimes actually being there, what we hear is that in the main, the locals are finishing up these projects. Maybe not exactly how we would. Some places they can't do too much. In other places they shock you with what they do. I'm talking shock you in a good way. They can sometimes do more than they ever thought that they could because they rally together, they spend time in prayer, they commit their resources, and all of a sudden they've done something great for God, and it's good for them. So perhaps that's an unexpected positive out of the program.
For members of the Porto Seco congregation of Angola, the construction of their one-day church was an answer to years of prayer. But they didn't leave the frame unfinished for long. The small group worked hard to raise the money to finish the church. Many of the ladies sold extra produce so they could purchase blocks and cement. Today, the Porto Seco congregation has grown to nearly 200 members. These members are motivated to share Christ with their neighbors and invite them to worship in their beautiful new church. Audrey, Ruth, and Kulekani in Simangani, along with more than 5,000 other congregations worldwide, have had their worship experience completely changed through the gift of a one-day church. What may seem like mere pieces of steel are an expression of hope for people who are determined to share Christ with those around them.
It might look simple in their eyes, but it is big in this community. Because it has never happened before. The people have never seen such a structure here. You see, even the houses around, if you have to move around, there are no iron sheets around. You just use the grass and stuff like that. So when they see just this simple structure, it's not simple as it may look like. It is big. It will go a long way.
Thousands of structures. Hundreds of thousands of lives changed. But there's so much work left to be done. And as long as there are still congregations meeting under trees, in homes, or in patios, Maranatha will continue building people one structure at a time.
you may not realize, even as Maranatha, the work that you are doing now, how far it will go and how far it goes in the minds of the people. So it is quite important that Maranatha continues building these structures here, because at the end of the day, people praise God for this work that you are doing.